Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Let's continue. So we found a tomb and I think we may be...
I found something. There might be a way in.
If it's not civilization, I'll wait here by the fire.
We have Jonah just being our companion, but seemingly he won't follow us into tombs. And I kind of assume that we're just not going to hang around with him for too long. It'd be very weird if the third game in a trilogy series turns out to be a mostly co-op experience. That was quite the long crawl there with the camera right up into the foliage, and it looked fairly nice. Although we still have the problem of the texture on... Well, I'm still having the problem of the texture of Lara Croft sometimes feeling very smooth and like at a lower resolution than the rest of everything else. Feels more video game looking than it feels like the last game should have looked. Alright, so we're in a challenge tomb, which is further in the map. I guess the question really will come down to how much of a challenge tomb will this be? Will it be a small little platforming experience like we've seen in the previous games? Or will it be a much larger area? Seems like whenever you see these yellow skulls, that's the indication of an opening. They introduced this idea of a perception flower, and I'm somewhat confused as to why you would need to use this perception herbal medicine. Seems like we're gonna just be jumping. Okay, fall to my death because I didn't hit the X button, I guess. And yeah, we're running into definitely a problem with the tutorials. Perhaps held my hand a little bit too much to begin with, and now I am kind of expecting to see text show up. But then there is also just kind of a, I think, visual problem in general. Let's see. It looks like you could climb up there. Apparently you're supposed to drop down here. That's definitely not what I was looking for. Scramble. I wasn't even looking in the right direction. Oh, I could have just cut. I could have just cut the wire. There, that's the first time we've triggered one of these wires. So I guess the idea is that this is just a path. Now we have a map update, which honestly doesn't seem like it's improved anything, although it does seem to show me that there is a cache. And it opened the menu after I just opened the menu. So the fact that I can move faster than the game could is a weird turn of events. Alright. And see, you're just back to that same tutorialization here, and having a very long jump as an element. Clearly you need to do all this searching for caches and all of the extra
This
actions
gear is early 20th century.
because you want that experience. There's a bunch of arrows. That looks like something. That looks like a trap. Like, it's funny how you're limited here to finding cash, sometimes to get XP, sometimes not, and to finding resources to craft things. They've really added a bunch of secondary gameplay mechanics to this game that perhaps the Lara Croft series just didn't need. Yes, they were going ambitious by completely rebooting the Tomb Raider series, but I do kind of question if they had said, we're going to remake the original Tomb Raider games or reboot the Tomb Raider games, but we're going to stay more true to the experience and just have platforming and shooting of guns and not add crafting and RPG game elements and an attempt, even if a pretty poor attempt, at a open world experience. In a lot of ways, this feels like this makes the same mistake that some of the Sonic games have done, in which they've shifted and drifted too far away from a hedgehog that runs fast into a completely different style of game with too much change. And arguably, it probably is just too much change too fast. Guess I'm gonna shoot this just to see what happens. Seems very weird that you have that there and that you have that there and that seems to be nothing. See, am I supposed to try and like hit that thing? Or am I supposed to jump that way? Okay, no fall damage at all from that. So I guess maybe that is just visually there to be a marker of which way to go. Although kind of poor marker of which way to go in this sense. And there are those ghosts we're hearing, or howler monkeys, or some other animal. I assume if you fall down there you would just die. Now we have a new base camp, which I question if maybe we will at some point be able to fast travel with base camps from one fire base camp to another. I'm not going to get any story element here. So I have 3 skill points, and I do tend to lean towards the idea that I probably should have this second stealth takedown ability unlocked fairly quickly, but let's finish this challenge tomb first and just make sure that it doesn't unlock something that's fairly expensive, because if we need 4 to 8 skill points to unlock something that's way more useful, I'd rather work towards that goal. Most of these skills have not shown themselves to be that useful. And I would assume crawling through this side might mean that there's
Someone there.
some kind of fight about to happen. Like, you see all these bows and arrows, you would assume that they're either traps or something. And I kind of suspect we're going to end up just fighting animals. Honestly, what would fix this game quite a bit is just an auto pickup. And that really would fix a lot of games. Now, why did I get XP for picking that up when I didn't get XP for harvesting flowers? You get one kind of resource, you get XP, one kind of resource, you don't. Alright, I'm a little confused as to where I'm supposed to go. I guess I'm supposed to be scrambling up this wall. I might need to just turn on the lines. That is an option. Let's see. Gameplay. Obvious white paint on critical path. Longer saving grab timer. Saving grab timer doesn't even matter now because I've got the hold enabled on repeated button presses. Base camps are lit. Let's see what that looks like.
What an incredible sight.
Maybe that was all just set up for the tomb and we're not even really in the tomb. I feel like the camera did a much better job framing that, but visually we still really have a problem of just, and I think this may be a problem with ray tracing in general, is that as you push towards the idea of ray tracing and natural lighting that looks like the real world, you get into more of a muted color palette and kind of a blue tint from the sky, from the oceans being reflected on the sky in general. Whereas if I was going to go with a bright, colorful anime style color palette, you would have very bright colors all over that, or at least you'd have a bunch of like blood red on it to make it stand out from the green and the trees. Green and grays, purples, and browns is a very natural color palette, but it's not visually distinctive because we're all, as humans, very much used to that color palette. Okay. So if I could get down there, I could open the door again. But I think we're going to go in a full circle would be my guess. Just all the way around and then back. It seems like the game is intentionally... Yeah. Can I rotate and swing in a different direction? I mean, seems like you can. Let's see if this works. So I just am able to hold X here. And just press it 3 times. And that lets us get back this way. I guess if we've missed something.
Looks like this might be the way out.
What's the problem here? Let's see. I don't know how to fall. So I just hit B to fall. And then I'm just gonna jump this way and hope that there's more gameplay here. So we found some gold ore. I'm not really finding that the holding of the X button works as well as it kind of promises to. And then I guess you have just obvious white flowers here now. Throw the grapple axe with X while making a jump to swing across. Do we have the grapple axe? I guess we do. We didn't have to really swing or press A to jump there. Just one button pressed, and I appreciate that. This is one thing that they've fairly consistently stuck to in the rebooted series, is that they don't really have this desire to have a temple actually just be an enclosed area.
Damn this place. Damn this forsaken jungle. It holds a jewel just out of reach and then sweeps your legs out from under you. We've almost made it across that bottomless pit. Some kind of altar beckons from the other side, under a giant stone face that seems to mock our efforts. Something attacked the camp. Some men claimed it was panthers. Others said something more sinister. Half the crew insist on abandoning the expedition. I had to dress one man down, made an example of him. All I need is one more day. One more lousy day.
This is not a very pretty 3D model for these journal entries. I would prefer to have just seen a piece of paper with some scribbles on it. That would have visually made more sense. At some point we're going to get a different knife, I'm sure. But also, we kind of know we're going to get that magical knife at some point too, and that'll probably be the strongest of the knives. I definitely doubt it was panthers that attacked them when
Something just moved up ahead.
we see all these arrows
Have to find a way
everywhere.
across the cenote.
It seems to me like there would be something over here. Plus you've got some white flowers, and if that white flowers is supposed to be the white paint of an obvious path, we haven't actually seen a lot of white paint. Here's a saw, so maybe they'll have multiple items, it looks like they will, that are going to be part of some form of system of highlighting things with. Okay. So we're supposed to, I think, attach something here to do that. And then, are we supposed to pull something down? Have this weird clock ticking sound effect in the music, which raises tension and does a pretty good job. So I guess the saw pointing in this direction isn't supposed to be obvious white paint, where the obvious white paint here. So we see that obvious white paint. Let's go back to the options and see what would happen if we went back to normal. Well, the white paint, it becomes more faded, and so they call that discrete. Honestly, I don't think that changes anything enough to justify its existence, really. Feels like they are just giving you different options when clearly there should have just been a easy and a hard mode at best, and the medium is really just a mushy middle option that doesn't need to exist. You're still going to have some small percentage of players with bad eyesight, or just bad perception abilities as far as catching the white paint when it is visible.
They must have abandoned
And
this
then you're
place
going to
in the
have
middle of
some
building it.
people that just don't want any assistance at all. Although I would question how many players there really are like that. You often hear these arguments that there are these hardcore players out there, but then when you look at the statistics, the number of people that just don't even beat a game are incredibly high. So it seems to me like it's a case in a lot of games where there are severely very loud and opinionated people. See, I don't like, though, every time I do this, where I'm getting a hint. I don't feel like I need that hint every time.
Have to find a way across the cenote.
And so maybe that's where a perception flower like this might make some more sense. Okay. I don't know how this is gonna work. Let's see. If I was to hop on this, it wouldn't really rotate. You can see how my perception flower there did nothing. And when you see the color palette get more cartoony, I actually rather enjoy that visual more. Kind of wish that was an option. Okay, white paint. Again. If we hit this and tie it to that.
That should hold.
Then I guess maybe that just keeps it from swinging. Okay. Now what? A long jump this way. And then pulling this. I guess gives you more time to jump on that. Looks like we've got several monoliths. Let's just go ahead and jump there and not overshoot it. Although it doesn't seem like...
There must be a climbing path somewhere to reach the altar.
Doesn't seem like you really would have missed it. More and more I am just gonna have to get better at finding things and picking them up without going into the sensing mode or wasting resources with the perception herb, which just seems like that's a redundant feature.
There must be a climbing path somewhere to reach the altar.
See, this would be a point where you'd imagine that this is going to be new information from a new story.
To Shabalba, where all must travel when transitioning from this life to the next.
But instead, it seems like half of these monoliths give you this MAM narrative, and so you're just getting, I think, multiple tribes. There must be a climbing path
somewhere to reach the altar.
Mythos. Am I literally supposed to just jump and slide on this wall? Well, we may die here. Okay. And see, that time I feel like I pressed X. So I feel like that was designed in such a way. that you would fall the first time. And then that was scripted, certainly, so that you had to dodge one way and then the other way. And I feel like they did a good job there of making that seem like that was a real danger when really they wanted you to succeed. We're just getting gold there, I guess. Of course, my problem with the idea of having a few good sections where the scripting works is there are lots of places where a casual fall just ends in instant death. Whereas ideally, I'd like to see every fall either have her throwing a hook back to where she was, or fading to black instead of showing the gory animated death, which is unnecessary. Or ideally, every fall would just land on a platform that sent you back to where you started, at least in the early parts of the game. Last one of these was a herbal medicine recipe. So this time we have Eagle's Perch. This increases the climbing skills to traverse environments with more speed. Well, that's certainly going to be a quality of life improvement. But I was perhaps expecting a little bit more. Getting 6 gold bars, I assume, is the same as getting 6 gold pieces. We have a lot of gold right now, but I think as soon as I start spending it, there's a chance that it would run out fairly quickly. Yeah, and it seems like this is where we will just run around. Guess we're grappling axing that. And see, even on the smart vision in there, that weirdly is not catching my eye. Don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Am I supposed to shoot this and climb downward? Okay. No, just very far away. This is our first slide I think we've actually interacted with, where you, I assume, can only go one way. And what's weird is back there was another path and we didn't look at it fully, but I suspect it would just end up putting us somewhat back to where we started, and at the end we have started exactly where we started. Did we miss anything? Just this base camp, which so far it doesn't seem like you can fast travel. Maybe we'll get a fast travel from base camp to base camp at some point. And the only thing I did really wrong there is I didn't disable a trap, which could have given me a little bit more experience. Fairly obviously though, this would have been that this is all just to unload one section and load the other section. And they're just doing a really good job of hiding it. This time though, it's very dark, and so the visuals of the grass not as pretty on the way out.
You find anything?
Another of those Maya altars, and...
And what?
An old camp gone to ruin.
We should keep going.
Right.
So, we acquired this, and so we don't even have to spend points on this. So, I think it is wise to go ahead and just purchase this. So, we can do double stealth kills. Then it would just come down to what we're looking for otherwise. Reducing noise, I think, has some value. Certainly. Dart poisons and maybe not that important. Locating the heart of animals I think might be useful. But wasn't there one that would point us towards finding more rare animals? Where is that? Here it is. So yeah, we've reduced the noise. We increase. We need 2 skill points for that. Okay. I do want hard shots, but I bet we're not gonna. We're putting all our thought that we're gonna fight humans before we fight animals again. And it does seem like we don't really need to save our points for the challenge tombs. We also know now, in general, what the challenge tombs are going to be like, how big they are, and how much of a challenge they're going to be. I don't know which way I'm supposed to go, though. It looks to me like I'm looking the wrong direction, and I should be going this way, and he's walking that direction. There may not really be that much left of this area before we find this city that we're supposed to be able to rest at night. And they didn't bother to turn on flashlight in this section, and instead they just adjusted the lighting.
Jonah, help me with this.
I almost turned around and just walked completely away from that because I didn't see the prompt.
2, 1.
Or I didn't get the prompt. And so here's that bloody jaguar. And Jonah has like no weapons on him.
Lara! Use the flare gun!
Why didn't he shoot the flare gun through the leaves? Well, I would think if you've shot a flare gun, you've probably, at that point, I don't think you can really get a fast draw on these guys. And I think it probably is better just to shoot. Let's see. Let's go ahead and heal ourselves. So maybe we'll kill this jaguar permanently now. Because it would be kind of crazy for it to come back a third time. I wouldn't be surprised if we run into other jaguars, but I also wouldn't be surprised if
Are you okay?
you can't harvest that. And the monkeys I shot, I can't harvest them. Got a little turned around
You
there.
okay?
Help me with this.
He could have easily shot at the character through the vines. And that definitely highlights the problem with trying to make a co-op game here, is that the boss fights are not designed for a boss fight. Really would have just made as much sense for Jonah to go first and then him get mauled by the jaguar. We just do a jump cut there, which really that should have been a fade out and a fade in as far as the cinematics. And as badass as they've tried to make Lara Croft, they've somehow resolved her down to sewing, which maybe you would have flipped the script a little bit on that idea and had Jonah be the healer character and the sewing seamstress character, instead of her,
You know, with everything we've been through recently,
basically
I've been
sewing
thinking about my
hides
brother.
together. But you really couldn't do that anyways.
I always try to protect
It's
him.
going to take days, if
From
not
my
weeks,
father.
to dry out a hide and
From
use it
himself.
as a fabric. You scrape off all
I
the
lost him.
guts and blood and
You did everything you
viscera.
If I had been in the right place, at the right time, he would still be here. If I had eyes in the back of my head.
You can't protect everyone.
I don't have an idea at all who his brother is, so I'm not really connecting to this narrative. And we have a different outfit on, so we're not even seeing the damage on her back that he's talking about. Which there was a setting for that.
I miss him.
I know.
The idea of damageable
My
and
parents.
repairable
I miss them too.
armor or outfits, not a terrible thought, but
Had a
I
dream
don't think
about
it's
my
very
mother recently.
Tomb Raider-like.
Yeah.
It was so vivid.
I assume this
When I was
conversation
little, my father
is
used
setting
to
up the
keep
idea that she's going to go back in time and either save his
hide
brother,
things
or
about her
he's going to
especially.
try and go back in time and save
Why
his
would he do
brother,
that?
and she's going to try and go back in time
After
and save
she
her,
died, he thought they'd cause me pain. It didn't
save
stop
her
me from looking
family,
for them,
her
of
parents.
course. I still have so many questions.
Your dad created as many mysteries as he solved.
Dominguez said that he would use the silver box of his shell to remake the world. If you had that power, what would you do?
Panic, probably.
You wouldn't go back to when your brother was alive and be with him again.
And lose everything else? No way.
Well, they immediately shut down the
I like
idea
this world.
that he would go back and
It's
change
not
things.
perfect. But everything I love now is in it.
Which just makes him the contrast to Lara Croft, who very noticeably just does not respond to Jonah a lot of times and doesn't say things. She's just keeping things close to her vest and not saying what she's thinking out loud. Because clearly, a poor writer would have had her go, nope, I would have the exact opposite. I would do the exact opposite and change the world. Because if she had said that out loud, then Jonah maybe would have tried to stop her.
To claim her treasure, the adventurer Lara Croft must
Wow, the
help
audio
king,
clip there.
reach the Forbidden Tomb, and solve the mystery of the White Queen. The way will be fraught with trials.
This is late in a trilogy to introduce a young
The adventure
version
should
of
not
Lara
dally any
Croft.
longer. In a minute, Dad!
Interesting.
The high walls of the castle beckon, taunting.
So, getting back to Croft Manor as an idea is an interesting idea here. I may have a problem with the skirt depending on if the camera is programmed well enough to not shoot up the skirt, which it seems like it is programmed well enough not to do that. You kind of have a slight problem with the younger age Lara Croft as a character, since she has been the femme fatale type archetype for a long time here. So we may not really have any
It has taken our hero years to piece this map together, spending nights in dusty libraries, going through ancient tomes, exploring...
Oops, didn't really want to hear all that, but yeah, maybe we really won't go back in time here at all. We still have the
Strange
census
beasts
mode.
cross our hero's path. Hard
A lot of
to tell if they're
swords.
bloodthirsty.
We're getting XP. Let's see, the scramble is like that. Jump is like that. Now, you're definitely in just like new territory completely here with a young Lara flashback. Obviously, you wouldn't.
Deadly accurate, for the most part.
Obviously, you wouldn't want her in the iconic hot
Our
pants.
hero could shoot a fly
Although
of a cart at 100
it might be interesting to show what a kid's version of the dual gun wielding hot pants might have looked like. But probably better to not do that, because it definitely might come off as offensive. She's perhaps a little underdressed for a rich British girl, even in I assume the summer.
The White Queen, locked away, but not forgotten.
A lot of plastic swords. Like, if she was going to have the something like the equivalent of two guns on her hip, you probably would put like little squirt guns or something. Alright, bullseye. We found a quest challenge. I imagine there's multiple balls is what they're calling them. I don't know if you would call a rubber bouncy ball with a handle quite a ball. Ooh, that may have messed me up. I may not be able to pick it back up. Well, there's another one over here. So now it's just a matter of figuring out where the next target is. Well,
I have thought about it many times, and I'm still adamant that Lara be spared from this terrible grief, as you call it. Having her constantly thinking about her mother will only be more painful. It is better for her to be a child and not be burdened by such heavy thoughts. If you do not desist in this campaign of yours, I will not hesitate to terminate your employment at Croft Manor.
so he's keeping something secret from Lara to spare her feelings. Alright, well, can we save the game here? I feel like the story is moving fairly quickly. Like 12% done now. and it changed the default difficulty label there when I changed the settings, which that seems weird. I'm going to take a little bit of a break and then pause the video, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So, unlike Indiana Jones, where it seems like Indiana Jones grew up in a very small, like 1920s, almost shack, like one bedroom house. Lara Croft here has this idea of Croft Manor, and having not been able to really play the old games, which is the biggest shame about the reboot series, is that it never really led to the idea of let's full-on remake the old games and let's do something with something in Croft Manor. Previously, I think there's just like a small section where you capture the butler in a freezer, and then in one game you can run around the gym as kind of a tutorial, whereas now we're running around here. If anything, it kind of is a little surprising that you wouldn't have a tutorial section using young Lara Croft as an intro character.
Lara climbs out over a lake of bubbling lava.
So here we can see they're basically using the same animation, but the problem now is they've got to keep that skirt from falling backwards, where naturally it would almost certainly fall
Looks like there's something
backwards.
up there in the crow's nest. I'll have to do better.
I don't know what I'm supposed to be hitting. Seems like the target would be just to hit that. And yeah, it's not working. And so, yeah, the idea that you can be incredibly rich and that would not lead to adventurers, particularly in the rebooted series where she just does regular adventures without end of the world consequences. It's funny, the camera tilts here so it almost feels like the ship is actually turning when it really isn't. And this is before, I guess, she would be in boarding school, which I assume that would then be eventually interesting. You get some vibration here when you jump on this rope bridge. A lot of stuff here that we probably will never see in the main game, so they spend a lot of energy making this section, I would guess. And perhaps that's wasteful. If anything, this also is highlighting that she's incredibly isolated for one reason or another. There's
Will soon reveal the
not
secrets of
another
the site.
kid here. There's not a
She
nanny
discovers a strange
or
set of
any adult
hieroglyphs.
playing with her.
Clues to the forbidden tomb, perhaps?
And this really sets up the idea that she just had this natural instinct to be an adventurer, which is fine except for the fact that she's not really much of an adventurer in the main reboot of the game.
Fresh graves. The king does not take kindly to trespassers.
Let's see.
The castle gates are well guarded. There's a reason our hero doesn't use the front door. Oh, brave Sir Knight, victim of the king's curse, doomed to stand vigil, warning away others from the forbidden tomb.
If anything, it does just kind of feel like this should have been a tutorial demo section. This does a great job of showing off graphics as far as the foliage,
What was it
while
Dad
not
said?
having people.
Carnations first appeared where the Virgin Mary's tears fell.
Yeah. Seems like there's a bunny running around, but I don't think we can actually kill the bunny, and we should kill the bunny as a kid. This doesn't really do... Interesting, if we get close enough we can start to hear the mother talking about, I think, characters. So I think we're probably going to end up spying on our parents and have some kind of flashback around that. But meanwhile, we have this challenge of finding the last bullseye. It would seem like the fourth bullseye should be over there. I don't suppose I'm supposed to try and hit this bird. Maybe I'm supposed to hit the bottom of the crow's nest. Maybe I'm supposed to just scramble up the crow's nest. Doesn't really feel like there's a way up. Okay. Maybe I just need to back up more. It's not like it's locking on to anything. And it doesn't really feel like the crow's nest would. So you can see there's a lot more garden and hedge maze type area on the other side of the gate. Yeah, maybe really don't do anything with the crow's nest. Maybe that was just a commentary.
The floor gives way. Lara tumbles into the darkness.
So we're going to climb through that window at some point. Oh, there's a whole underground
Amazing.
tunnel.
Has entered a burial chamber that has not been disturbed in millennia.
Yeah, you would think that this kind of play would imply that she would have always been a treasure hunter or archaeologist, and that she would have had more archaeologist friends and been on more adventures before just coincidentally being trapped on a magical island, and then that in the first game feeling like that was the first time she's been on any real adventure. Interesting that there's a water flowing sound effect. That's yet another gate. Suppose there might be another target somewhere else in this flashback sequence. Oh, there it is. I guess there is also just a question to be asked about: is this flashback sequence designed to just show that we've done maybe a quarter of the game and that this game is just actually very short? Now that you have pretty ray tracing foliage, it definitely feels like that comes at the expense of there not being any people around. Yeah. I guess what you probably want to do here is have...
The tomb calls out.
Objective beacons. just don't get what I'm supposed to be doing here. I see a rope. Maybe I was supposed to find a
The adventurer
throw a
should
ball.
not dally any longer.
If anything, it seems like the game is just telling me straight up to give up on it. Let's see. Give this a try and see if hitting the rope makes any sense at all. Nope. So maybe we'll collect that later. Yeah. I think what you would have is probably more of a proper British tea party-like experience in this sequence, where there was perhaps a friend, a girlfriend or a boyfriend, little kid that you were nice to, and then there were perhaps some snotty or rude British children that were also invited that your parents were forcing you to be nice to. There, I hit the bird and that did nothing. And then I could see having a major tutorial section around just climbing and running and scrambling, and that would have been the first section. Then perhaps maybe we would have come back to a sequence like this later. Another flashback memory. And I think we probably will come back to another flashback memory like this at some point.
A test of skill. Our hero will need a bullseye to weigh down that basket.
Oh, I see the trick now.
The treasure is revealed.
There's no treasure there. Okay. But we did get some experience for doing that. And then I could see pulling out the squirt guns and shooting it. The squirt guns would just be like on a belt on her sides, and then that could be iconic to the dual pistols. And then I would probably shift the color of this t-shirt into a more iconic green t-shirt from the original game, and sunglasses. Give her some kind of goofy, like, prescription eyeglasses instead of sunglasses, which maybe would make her look a little too much like Harry Potter, but I think it would work. But it definitely makes some sense that there'd be at least one other kid in this whole sequence beckoning you on to do other actions. Alright, so I was thinking you would climb up here to reach that point.
Now for the real treasure in the Forbidden Tomb.
And at some point, if you did have another kid,
to avoid alerting the king,
like, you could have the kids pushing her towards climbing up here, and then maybe she would even fall and hurt herself, and then that could be the end of the sequence. She may still fall and hurt herself.
What does Lara have to do with any of this? She's in her room doing her homework.
She hasn't much time.
So, yeah. I think our hands are probably clipping through the wall there as they attempt to do that. And so our father, I assume that's the father, not really knowing where his kid is.
Kingsguard will never expect Croft to climb the castle.
Sadly, it seems like once again we're only going to get a portion of Croft Manor. It's something that's been teased, I think, more than it's actually worth being teased for.
Our hero continues climbing, looking for another way in.
This definitely feels like she's gonna fall, or nearly fall.
Our hero spies another entrance. Shoo! Go on!
And that probably is a custom animation. Does this kind of happy-go-lucky story fit with the apocalypse theme of the rest of the game?
The extraordinary height
I
and
don't think it really does, but maybe maybe that's the idea. And see, maybe this would be a great point to do like Indiana Jones and the first movie, what was it? The Ark of the Covenant game, where young Indiana Jones falls in a pit of snakes, or nearly falls into a pit of snakes and hates snakes. I could see Lara Croft going heights. I really was never a fan of heights, or I hate heights. I guess we're climbing up here.
She recovers her footing and
Or she could be attacked by bats.
To the forbidden tomb.
I think bats would work fairly well, whereas heights is something she addresses far too often.
These parapets are damaged. She'll have to squeeze through.
So, neglectful father, probably in line with the stereotype as far as a rich British parent, single parent, although, and friendless Lara Croft doesn't directly lead in my mind towards
so close. She can
a
almost touch it, but an
badass
invisible
adventurer
force field
character.
stands in her way. There must be another entrance.
See,
Our fearless adventurer has
one of the
reached
problems I feel like when you have stories like this is that you have Lara Croft clearly idolizing the father, who is just going to be an average human father at best. He's not going to be some Superman, superhero character. And then we're seeing that he really doesn't know where she is. And I think they're going to want us to forget that he's kind of a neglectful parent. And think of him as a superhero near the end. I imagine he's gonna swoop in and save the day somehow. The only other direction you really can go with the story, other than just being in the mushy middle and saying nothing, these old houses, I imagine, are not really designed.
Chuckles at her audacity. She's close now.
Like, they almost certainly would fall apart as soon as you start climbing on the outside of them. Yeah. Either you're going to... The story is going to try and make the father seem like a superhero, savior character at the end, or they're going to do the twist where he turns out to be a really bad guy. And I would lean more to being interested about him being a really bad guy and working for Trinity as a twist. And if you don't do one of those two extremes, you're going to tell a mid-line story where he's just her father. We have this mystery, certainly, that his journals stop when he gets to Peru. He just seems like he loses interest, and I imagine what happened is she's going to go back in time and there's going to be a lost journal or a journal that he destroys because he's interacting with a older Lara Croft in the past. Here we have more 3D textures that I really question if we will ever see. Like for every planter, for every wood frame paneled thing, for every sofa, for every carpet, it feels like you're going to need to now have some sequence in Peru where you end up in a different castle that has similar textures. Otherwise, this is all just wasted 3D modeling that's only used for this one sequence.
At last.
I kind of would be fine if half of this game was flashbacks to previous adventures of an adult Lara Croft, and that it was almost like a Chronicles game, where it was a collection of adventures.
By night, the great bat stole the queen at 30 north and 90 east. From her pen, she wrote her heart. With light, unlock her love's release. I wonder if the White Queen is lonely.
So I wonder if she already knows the answers to like some puzzles here and has done this before.
The head of King David. From a shepherd to a king. Imagine that.
Okay.
This looks like a figure from that game Mum and Dad used to play. But why is it out here, in the playground? There's an A scratched in the bottom, for Amelia. I miss you, Mum. I think this is from when we walked the El Memsha. I don't remember much, except for how spicy the bazaar smelled.
So here we
Mum
have a
looks so
different
happy.
picture of what she would
does
look
Dad.
like younger, even. It says we can spin things to find hidden information, but
It's not fair. Why did she have to die? I have thought about it many times, and I'm still adamant.
we already heard
It
that
has
one.
taken our hero years to piece this map. This enigmatic illustration. The note
But
said
to
90
see
degrees
this one-
east and 30 north. The head of King David. The coordinates might have something to do with the globe. The cup of St. John. The apostle had been given a chalice of poisoned wine, but after his blessing, the poison transformed into a snake, and he drank the wine unharmed.
So it seems to me like the Father Croft really is the person we should have been following in the series instead.
This is an old game. 2 shields and a white crown. Could that be the White Queen?
Like, you just look in this
A Byzantine scroll.
collection
Justice is
room.
the constant and perpetual wish to render everyone his due. Emperor Justinian. This is Egyptian, an evil eye box. The contents were meant to help sustain and provide for people in the afterlife.
The problem here is you can't zoom in on any of these artifacts. It says press this button to open the viewer and examine the artifact. But none of these items are showing up.
This is Egyptian, an evil eye
It's not like
box.
you'll hold
the
it.
coordinates might have something to do with the globe.
Okay, we don't want to do this because this is part of the puzzle, obviously. That was a awkward jump over
The Sun
it.
King, Louis XIV, married Maria Theresa, ending a long-standing war between France and Spain.
I mean, I assume each one of these artifacts was potentially a pitch for a new story around Lara Croft, and yet we're probably not going to see any of them.
The poor queen, Maria Theresa, died a painful death, to which the king said, "This is the first trouble she has given me." I bet the poor thing could hardly see out of that chanfron.
Big words. That gave
The
us
king,
experience.
The White Queen. There's something in the shields.
Mirrors.
Mid-14th century barding. Germanic, I think. I can't imagine how heavy those bardings were. Those poor horses. A quotation from Chaucer. What is better than wisdom? Woman. What is better than a good woman? Nothing.
Okay, so I see a ladder here. So we're probably going up that way. Let's check the 30 north, 90 east. Alright. So we're going west, we'll just end up having to go all the way around, I guess. Again, much like Indiana Jones, it would make a lot of sense for there to be a went too far. Even played a little sound effect there when we got to the right place. It make a lot of sense for there to be another kid that doesn't know anything about this, about historical things, and then that would let Lara Croft show off to that character.
With light, unlock her love's release. It worked.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you really call this much of a game as much as this is just a puzzle. And around it, let's say there's not even that much of a puzzle going on. Just move this over here. And this here. And this here. See, I think that's pretty much all we needed to do. It doesn't seem like this solution implies anything else. White Queen eventually needs to be here, but I don't think any of these other statues are going to actually be the White Queen. And notice how the lighting, once it got dark in here, again showing off ray tracing. There's a real obsession here with ray tracing. Now everything looks way better visually, and I can actually see reflections on the glass, which is a big thing on ray tracing, and see through the glass and see the lighting on the objects. Again, real obsession here with ray tracing. Meanwhile, the story is going a little long for this flashback sequence.
entered the forbidden mezzanine.
I
She'll
could
to
have
be careful.
seen starting to the point where you climb to the roof, and then when you almost fell off the roof, that should have been the part where it faded out, and then you would have been played some more of the main game, and then you would have come back to having not completely fallen off the roof but actually making it to this section, and then this section would have been the second flashback.
A South American healer. A baby Tyrannosaurus Rex. I wonder if it lost its mother too.
For the time frame, it's not surprising that there isn't some kind of like support group that she should be going to, her family therapist. Particularly in the UK, I imagine going to therapy is still kind of not smiled upon as much as it probably should be. The United States is just as bad, certainly. Here we have a letter to a contractor.
I just wanted to thank you for your discretion, as well as the work you have done. The vault has been constructed exactly to my specifications. The final payment will be sent at the end of the week. The delay was due to an accounting error, which has now been rectified. Yours, Richard Croft.
Yeah.
No matter where you stand, these masks seem to stare at you.
It does kind of create this situation now that the father, Richard Croft, has done so many adventures himself that he's taking off the table any adventures
Animal skulls,
you could,
an omen of
Lara
death,
could have had.
symbols of great change. This looks Mayan. Is it Kukulkan? I wonder who those two dogs are. This is from Colombia, a Xeno chieftain mask. I wonder if these eyes have seen El Dorado. I haven't seen some of these artifacts before.
So, yeah, this one room just has so much in it. It could have been its own small section, particularly if you'd just given the quest of looking at every artifact.
This box contains the bones of the dead. I can't read the inscription.
You do run into this problem though. Like when you have any character, I kind of wish the camera could get the face of the character more often. Like in this case, framing, you would probably have something like this. Or so you would like click X and then maybe the camera would slowly pan to the side so you can actually see her looking at things and see her facial reactions, because you really should be getting like facial reactions of awe.
This is the kind of armor that the conquistadors wore.
I imagine her lips aren't even moving,
I wonder what
and they've
found.
programmed her to turn her head to not look that way when she's talking. Interesting. Like here you can get her face, fine. But here it stays still. As soon as I hit X, it turns away.
During the Age of Discovery.
As a way of
I wonder what
cheating
they found.
that the lips are not animated and moving.
A statue of an Ariki from the Cook Islands.
Well, wait a minute, the lips are moving.
A statue of an Ariki from the Cook Islands.
And the lip flap is perfect, so maybe the lips just weren't animated for that one line of dialogue, or maybe they just have some other dumb reason for that. That just seems weird. Like, at what point would you program your main protagonist to look away from the camera, turn their head? Does seem like it happens quite a bit. Some of it is obviously she's got to focus attention where she's looking at the object. but it really should just stay that way.
A statue of an Ariki from the Cook Islands. 25th Dynasty. The interior of the sarcophagus is incredibly intricate.
It almost seems like she's turning her head in the direction your camera is looking. I guess that's probably what it is. That's weird. But I guess it kind of makes some sense too. If anything, it just feels like the whole section really could have been first person perspective. That would have been an interesting twist, certainly, if you started in a first person perspective.
Need to find the White Queen.
In this section, and then at the very end she stands in front of a artifact of a mirror, and it zooms out and shows her as a little girl, and reveals that you've been playing a flashback the whole time. And then if you did that reveal and then faded out to the current time frame where you're playing as Lara Croft, I think that would work pretty
Greek?
well.
No, Persian. I wonder what she's guarding.
I guess it says something that the narrative and the way the story is being told is my biggest criticism so far. Although the gameplay mechanic of RPG elements and scavenging for items is a problem too. I feel like this is probably more in line with what a Tomb Raider game reboot should have been, is that you would have walked around and been able to interact with things, but interacting with things either led to a direct solution of a puzzle, or it just gave you information for your own personal education and entertainment, instead of getting experience points and salvage items and crafting items. Then you could definitely focus more on just the platforming and the puzzling aspect.
A Persian lioness. But someone stole her head. I wonder what she was looking at.
Some of these definitely need better custom camera angles. And that is a big part of developing games too, is that if you want to get more of that cinematic feeling and do it right, you are going to have a lot of custom camera angles that are triggered in camera shots.
The death mask of
It's not just going to be a
found in
default
Mycenae.
system where the camera is always directly behind the character looking at a specific angle.
An African tribal mask, made of gold. Ashanti, perhaps.
Definitely feels like there should be more information coming about from looking at all of this stuff. So we're revealing
The great bat
wings. Okay. I think we've figured out what's going on here. And we'll just climb down and fall there. Alright.
The knight's shield reflects the light beam.
So, and we're just gonna have to move some things out of the way. It doesn't really snap into a spot where it feels like it should. It feels like you should press X, then press back, and then it would just automatically slide in a smooth animation that way. And then that. I'm going to move and clear a path here. It does kind of lock into specific spots when you're close enough, but if I get like halfway and stop, it's still willing to stay there. You have to be fairly close. Even that's still not close enough for it to line up.
There she is. The
So
White
now
Queen.
it's just
Trapped.
free the White
I
Queen.
have to help her.
Which wouldn't that just be changing this?
Now I can free her.
Yeah, if anything,
With light.
it's indicating here that
unlock her love's release.
they really don't seem like they want to have too many of these type of puzzles in the main story.
Amazing.
And so we found a way into the vault.
Her heart pounding, our hero crosses the threshold into the unknown. These are
It
Mum's
seems like
things.
it's just he's put out all of the mother's things in a vault, locking away probably mementos more than important things.
The path was dark and is guarded by bats, said the Red Knight. The White Queen regarded him with a curious smile and said,
I'm not a huge fan
I'm not afraid of bats.
of yellow as a subtitle color, but it is very often used for people with low visual acuity. So it seems to me like the father probably put her up to
You and me are riding a
solving the
T-Rex
puzzle
in Egypt.
Where's Daddy?
in her
At work.
the father probably put her up to finding the vault, but he almost certainly didn't put her up to the idea of climbing on the roof. He probably planned on her solving this puzzle later.
Amelia, this is very, very important. I cannot abandon my responsibilities just on the verge.
You are always on the verge. Your obsession is destroying this family.
Obsession. I'm upset.
You are missing your daughter's childhood because you're always in some tomb on the other side of the world. Why can't you be happy with what you have?
Oh, for goodness sake, you don't have to deal with it.
Dad?
Please, for goodness sake, you've got to understand. This is probably the most important one I've arrived at. Well, okay, what do? I have to...
So I guess maybe the echo concept here is that Lara Croft ruined her chance for a normal life too by being obsessed around tomb raiding. Although she only became obsessed after she found out about Trinity pretty much. And then he's just straight up, I guess, shot himself? I was not expecting that. She looks like she's covered in sweat, or... Yeah, I guess that's sweat. You would think that
Silver
from a
Crown
story
Mountain.
like that,
Yeah.
she would never go on
Wonder what the
adventures
jungle
like
has in
him,
store for us today.
and she would resent him for being
Whatever
obsessed.
it is, we'll handle it.
Hey, it can't be worse than yesterday, right?
If anything, maybe that story explains why Lara Croft as an adult is this emotionless, like friendless character, is that she's just completely shut down on the inside. So we could now wear the vest of Empress Jade. Which, let's just see what that looks like. That is the vest of the Empress Jaguar, is what that says. Versus what we had on before, which was the tactical adventurer outfit, which does nothing, but the flashback actually has changed our outfit because that's not what we were wearing at all. Let's see. We were wearing the hunter's array, I believe. Nope. Increase the duration of the perception orbital effects. Let's see. What were we wearing? If anything, it kind of feels like the game likes to swap out the outfits when you're not paying attention, just like it did. Bonus XP hunting, increased focus time. I could have sworn we were wearing something different. A lot of these outfits don't do anything as far as benefits, so there's just no reason why you would wear them. Maybe the outfits are moving around. Felt like we were wearing something like that. Yeah, no, we were wearing this. The Explorer, natural resources increases, and bonus in hunting. Yeah. And as far as weapons increases and upgrades, the Oath-Taker's bow seems like that might be new, but I don't know if it's worth it to go away from the Silver Strike at this point. And then skills, we have 2 skills, so we'll increase the chances of finding rare animals. Where the twins confer, find Kuwat Yaku. Some outfits give game benefits, so warn switch outfits at the base camps by accessing the inventory menus. So it looks to me like we've done the Mystery of the White Queen, and there's several other of these quests. And it looks to me like we're still in the Peruvian jungle, and that there's just going to be a lot more of that. We have 66% of the man's proficiency as far as how much we can, I guess, read their language. The thing I wanted to see is somewhere around here in gameplay, I think, is, or in display. Let's see. I think it's under gameplay. I swear there was something here. It says hidden outfit restriction on. Hidden city outfit restriction is on. Interesting. But I guess I can't change that. You could have only changed it at the beginning of the game. I don't know why that's such a big deal that you can't toggle it now. But also, that's not really what I was hoping that would be what it does. Ideally, I was hoping that I could equip an outfit and get the benefits of that outfit without changing the appearance of Lara Croft. but it seems like that isn't the case. So, once again, you have an interesting compromise you have to do where ideally you would just play the game with the default outfit the whole time, but then you would get no bonus for that at all. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that. I would hope we would have another flashback, but I don't know what you could really do as far as another flashback in this game. It seems like you've set yourself up for a continued, like, sad story. The happy-go-lucky ended very quickly there, and the only thing you could do with more flashbacks is have her be in like a boarding school or being raised alone in the mansion a couple years later. Maybe you get into that preteen, teenage, awkward time period, but there's just not a lot of age there in Lara Croft, since they say even now she's in her 20s, when it would have made more sense if she had been chasing Trinity for 10 years and there had been just a big time skip in between the two, or that she'd lost the trail of Trinity for 10 years and been on other adventures, and then you had someone that was in their late 30s, 40s. Part of what I think kind of works with Harrison Ford and in Indiana Jones is that even by the third movie, Harrison Ford was looking pretty old as a character, and that gave more of an air of the idea that he had enough time to have lived all those adventures. Whereas this rebooted series really gives the feeling that Lara Croft 1 in the reboot happened, and then maybe a year later Lara Croft 2 happened in the reboot, and then maybe a year later this game is happening. We haven't gone as long as the previous episodes, but I think this is a really good point to end this episode, so I'm going to end this here. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.